Taehyung's arms were iron around her, his breath ragged against her hair. Whyun wanted to push him away, scream, remind him of every scar he'd left on her, but her body betrayed her. Her fists, which had been rigid against his chest, slowly unfurled. She found herself gripping the fabric of his shirt instead, as if she would drown if she let go. Her forehead slipped against his collarbone, and before she realized it, her ear pressed over his chest. His heartbeat pounded hard, uneven, as if it was breaking its way out just to reach her. For a long, fragile moment, she listened, each beat pulling her further into him, every thud echoing louder than her own pain. Her tears wet his skin through the thin cotton, but she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe anywhere else but here. Taehyung felt the shift, the way her body melted, not forgiveness, not yet, but surrender to the truth of their bond. His throat tightened, his lips hovering just above her ear. His voice came out hoarse, breaking, rawer than she had ever heard. I prayed for this heartbeat to stop 1,000 times when I was away, because it wouldn't let me forget you. Whyun froze, her breath hitched, trembling against him. His arms tightened even more, his words tumbling in whispers, desperate, fevered. Every night it reminded me you weren't beside me. Every morning it screamed that I ruined you. Do you know how heavy it is living with a heartbeat that only beats for the one you abandoned? Her tears spilled harder, soaking his chest. Her fingers clutched his shirt until her knuckles went white. She hated him. She loved him. She couldn't breathe without him. You're cruel. She whispered, her voice barely audible. Do you even know what you're doing to me right now? Taehyung pressed his face into her hair, inhaling as if he'd die without it. His lips trembled against her temple. Yes, he breathed, his voice breaking completely, and I'll still beg to do it, if it means I can feel you again. The room spun around them, the silence between their sobs more deafening than any storm. For the first time in years, they weren't enemies, they weren't strangers. They were two wounded souls pressed together, bleeding into one another, bound by the heartbeat that refused to let them go. Her lips trembled against his shoulder, the words clawing their way out of her chest. For years she had swallowed them down, buried them under anger and pride, but pressed against his heartbeat, she couldn't hold them anymore. I hated you, Whyun whispered, her voice shaking, so fragile it almost broke in the air between them. Taehyung stilled, his breath hitched, his arms frozen around her as if bracing for the blade. I hated you for leaving me to rot in their whispers. I hated you for making me the wife whose husband disappeared. I hated you for not being there when my world collapsed. Her fists tightened in his shirt, knuckles digging into his chest. But more than all of that, her voice cracked, spilling into a sob. I hated you because I missed you. Every night, every breath, even when I told myself I'd rather die than think of you again, I still. Her words broke off in a choked cry. Taehyung crushed her to him then, his body trembling so hard it felt like he might shatter. His tears burned hot against her temple, his voice breaking apart as he whispered back, desperate and hoarse. Then hate me for the rest of your life, just don't stop missing me, don't stop needing me. That's all I have left. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of grief, of love, of years of pain collapsing into this fragile first hug. Their tears mingled, their breaths tangled, and for the first time, they were both honest, bleeding out the truths they had buried too deep for too long. Her whisper still lingered in the air, fragile and raw, when Taehyung slowly pulled back just enough to see her face. His forehead rested against hers, his breaths uneven, his last heavy with tears. Whyun he breathed, her name slipping from his lips like a prayer he wasn't worthy to say. His eyes searched hers, not with the fire of desire, but with the desperation of a man terrified this moment might vanish if he blinked. Her gaze wavered, caught between anger and longing, between the past that scarred her and the present that tugged at her heart. Their breaths mingled, and before either of them could stop it, the distance narrowed. His nose brushed hers, lips hovering so close that her heart began to pound painfully in her chest. It wasn't a kiss. It was the threat of one, the eek of it. The trembling hesitation of two broken souls who had loved, lost, and now stood on the knife's edge of forgiveness. Yven's hand moved on its own, fisting in his shirt, not pulling him closer, but not letting go either. Her voice was barely more than a breath. I don't know if I can forgive you completely. Taehyung closed his eyes, as though the words themselves were blades cutting through him. But she whispered, her tears glistening under the dim hotel light, I'll give you a chance. One chance, Taehyung, to prove that this time you'll stay. To prove that you're worth starting fresh. His body sagged against hers, a sob escaping before he could hold it back. His lips brushed her hairline, not a kiss, just a trembling touch of devotion. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it, he vowed, his voice breaking, even if I die trying. Wyden didn't answer with words. Instead, she let her forehead rest fully against his, eyes closing. And in that silent surrender, the first fragile step towards something new, something terrifying but alive, was taken. The first morning in Paris, silence clung to their hotel room. Wyden avoided looking at the single bed they had shared in uneasy half-sleep, while Taehyung awkwardly fixed his hair in the mirror, stealing glances at her reflection. The air was fragile, but instead of forcing conversation, he simply handed her a cup of coffee he had gone downstairs to buy. Two sugars, he said softly, remembering. Her eyes flicked up a small, unintentional crack in her guarded wall. Paris was alive, cobblestone streets, little cafes, artists sketching strangers by the Seine. At first, they walked with distance between them, Wyden keeping her hands clasped, Taehyung shoving his into his coat pockets. But as the crowd thickened, his hand instinctively brushed hers, guiding her protectively so she wouldn't stumble. He didn't hold on, but neither of them pulled away quickly enough. One evening, while trying escargot nails at a restaurant, Wyden's expression twisted in disgust, and Taehyung burst into laughter. The sound startled her. It wasn't the cold, restrained man she remembered, but the boyish laugh she once adored. She smacked his arm lightly, but then, against her will, she laughed too. For a moment, the walls crumbled. On their third night, they climbed quietly to the rooftop terrace of their hotel. The city stretched wide beneath them, Paris glowing like a dream, the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance. The silence wasn't hostile anymore, just uncertain. Wyden leaned on the railing, watching the lights. It's strange, she murmured, being married to someone and still not knowing the simplest things about him. Taehyung's eyes dropped to the ground, guilt flashing before he forced himself to meet her gaze. You're right. I don't even know your favorite color, or what makes you smile when no one's watching. Her lips parted at his honesty. For the first time, she didn't hear excuses, only quiet regret. Pink, she said after a moment, not the pale kind, the bold one. The kind people think is too loud. A soft chuckle escaped him. That suits you. He shifted closer, just a step. For me, it's blue, dark, almost navy. I always felt safe with it. Wyden tilted her head, curiosity tugging at her, safe. You don't seem like someone who finds comfort easily. His jaw tightened, then loosened with a sigh. Because I don't, not anymore. His eyes searched hers under the Parisian glow. But maybe I want to try, with you? Her chest tightened, but she held her ground, her voice quiet. Then tell me more, not the polished version. The real one. So, on that rooftop, with the hum of Paris below them, they began. She told him about her childhood habit of collecting pressed flowers in books, the way her father used to joke she'd open a garden instead of a home. He told her about sleepless nights in New York, sitting on subway benches just to avoid the emptiness of his apartment. For the first time, there was no past hanging over them, just two people slowly discovering the strangers they had once vowed to love. And when silence finally wrapped around them again, Wyden didn't feel like she was standing with her broken husband. She felt like she was meeting Kim Taehyung truly, for the first time. The city hummed faintly below, cars like veins of light weaving through Paris, The Eiffel Tower shimmered in gold, but why? Anne's eyes weren't on it. She leaned on the railing, arms folded, gaze lost in the distance. It feels unreal, she whispered, breaking the silence. Standing here with you, we're supposed to be husband and wife, yet. Her voice faltered. You're still a stranger. Taehyung's throat tightened. He leaned beside her, not too close, not too far. That's my fault, he admitted softly. I left before I could even ask you something as simple as what you like to eat for breakfast. Her lips curved bitterly, and for the record, it's paratha with honey. Not very French, I know, he blinked, then let out a small laugh, genuine, almost boyish. I never would have guessed. You don't seem like the type. And what type do I seem like? She asked, raising a brow. He hesitated, his eyes tracing her face under the dim light. Like someone who hides her softness because she's been forced to be strong. Her chest stilled. She didn't expect him to see that. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she asked quietly, what about you? What's your favorite? He smiled faintly. Americano, black, bitter. That figures, she muttered, and this time, she almost smiled. A comfortable pause stretched, broken only by the Paris wine brushing their hair. Wyan tilted her head. Tell me something about you. Not the polished Kim Taehyung the world sees. Something real. His jaw flexed. He looked out at the glittering city. I used to sing myself to sleep as a kid, just humming. So the house wouldn't feel empty. He gave a sad smile. I still do, sometimes. Wyan's heart clenched. I used to press flowers in my notebooks. My dad teased me, said I'd open a garden instead of getting married. Her eyes softened. Yes, he wasn't entirely wrong. He turned toward her, quiet awe flickering in his gaze, like he was meeting her for the first time. What else? He asked gently. So she told him about sneaking into the kitchen at night to eat raw cookie dough. About how she once wanted to be a painter but was too scared to call herself an artist. About the way she hated thunder but loved rain. And he told her about the nights in New York where the subway benches felt more like home than his apartment. About how he hated the silence in hotel rooms. About how he still carried the watch his grandmother gave him, though it no longer worked. Ours slipped like sand. With every exchange, their walls cracked, letting something fragile and human spill through. At last, Wyden leaned her head against the cold railing, her voice barely above a whisper. We don't know each other, not really, but maybe we could start now. Taehyung's gaze lingered on her profile, the way the Paris lights kissed her skin. His chest ached with something between regret and hope. I'd like that, he said, his voice raw. And for the first time since their marriage, Wyden didn't feel the weight of a stranger beside her. She felt the beginning of something fragile, but real. The sliding doors of Incheon Airport parted, the buzz of Seoul flooding back into their ears, the crowd, the announcements, the rolling suitcases. But none of it mattered. Taehyung's hand was wrapped around Wyden's, their fingers laced so tightly it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Neither tried to pull away. A faint blush dusted her cheeks, the kind she tried to hide by looking straight ahead. He wasn't much better. The curve of his mouth kept betraying him, a shy smile tugging despite the weight of curious glances from passers-by. Feels strange, she whispered, eyes fixed forward. What does, he asked softly, leaning closer so only she could hear. Coming back like this, she murmured, hand in hand. He glanced at her, warmth flickering in his gaze. Strange, he agreed, his thumb brushing over her knuckles, but not wrong. Their steps matched in rhythm, their hands never loosening. For the first time in years, the silence between them wasn't heavy, it was alive, humming with unspoken promises. And in the reflection of the airport glass, they didn't look like broken strangers anymore. They looked like the fragile beginning of a real couple. The housemaids scattered as they unloaded the luggage, bowing politely before slipping away. One of them leaned close to Wyden, whispering, Sir, Madam, the senior couple is on the terrace. Hwan turned to Taehyung, searching his eyes. He gave a faint nod, silent agreement, and together they climbed the marble staircase, each step echoing heavier than the last. The terrace door was slightly ajar, warm night air spilling through, voices carried clearly in the quiet. Hwan froze. "Shut up!" Mrs. Kim's voice was sharp, slicing the air. "I only want a grandson." "We don't need any granddaughter." Her lips parted to greet, but the words died. Mr. Kim's low chuckle followed. "But what if your favorite daughter-in-law gives you one?" "You can't control that. Not acceptable." Mrs. Kim spat. "Because of Taehyung, my friends ask questions every single day. For 2 years I have lied through my teeth to save face. Now to shut them up, Hwan must give us a boy, a son. A granddaughter will be nothing but shame." Mr. Kim sighed. "Then let's just pray to God, pray." She scoffed, bitter venom lacing every word. "No, if I find out she's carrying a girl, I don't care how far along she is, I will make her miscarry. I will not live with the disgrace of saying that after 3 years, the Kim family finally got a grandchild, and it's a girl." The night stilled. Behind them, just a few steps away, Hwan's breath faltered. Her knees buckled under the weight of the words, her body trembling. She stumbled, a gasp escaping her throat before she could stop it. Taehyung caught her instantly, one arm locking tight around her waist. His other hand pressed against her shoulder, holding her upright as his own heart thundered with rage. Hwan's eyes widened, shimmering with betrayal, her lips quivering. Who were these people? These were not the parents-in-law who had smiled at her wedding, not the loving mother-in-law who fussed over her meals, not the father-in-law who claimed to protect her like his own daughter. No, these were strangers, imposters, monsters wearing familiar faces. Tears welled up, spilling down her cheeks as she turned to Taehyung, broken, trembling. Her voice cracked like shattered glass. "Who are they? I don't know them anymore." Her words sliced him open. Taehyung's own chest tightened, fury mixing with grief. His lips pressed together in a thin, trembling line, and without hesitation, he pulled her into him, engulfing her in his arms, shielding her trembling frame against his chest. Her tears soaked through his shirt as he tightened his hold, burying his face into her hair. His entire body shook with the storm he was holding back, rage at his own blood, guilt that she had endured their poison alone, shame that he had ever left her with them. The muffled laughter of the senior couple still drifted in the air, but to Taehyung, it was the sound of everything burning. In that moment, he swore silently into her ear, his voice breaking, though barely audible. "Never again, Hwan, never again will they touch you. Never again will you cry because of them. I swear it." And on that terrace, under the Paris-softened moon now hardened over Seoul, husband and wife held onto each other like shipwrecked souls, realizing the greatest enemy was not distance, not time, but the blood that ran in Taehyung's own family. The moment they slipped away from the terrace, neither dared to breathe too loudly. The senior Kims' voices still echoed in their ears, venom dripping with every remembered word. Hand in hand, they walked down the hall, but Hwan's steps were unsteady, her tears threatening to spill. By the time Taehyung closed the door of their room behind them, she broke. Her chest heaved as the first sob tore out of her. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, but the words escaped anyway, fractured and trembling. How easily she said it, Tae, her eyes squeezed shut as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Miscarry," she said it like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. Is she even a mother? How can a mother talk like that? Taehyung's throat closed. He reached her into strides, pulling her into his arms. But she clung harder, like a child who had lost her only comfort, shaking against him. "I never knew what a mother's love was like," Hwan whispered through sobs, her voice muffled against his chest. "I never had it, but Mrs. Kim, she gave it to me. I loved her, Tae. I loved her so much, like she was my own mom. She made me believe I finally had one." Her tears drenched his shirt as her body shook with the ache of betrayal. But own mothers don't say things like that about daughters. Own mothers don't want to kill their grandchild just because she might be a girl. She fooled me, Tae. I feel so stupid. Why the nah? Taehyung's own eyes glistened, though he blinked rapidly, refusing to let his tears fall when she needed his strength. His hand stroked the back of her head, his other arm firm around her waist. No, you are not stupid. Don't you dare think that. His voice broke, but steadied again, low and raw. You only loved her. That's not weakness, baby. That's your heart. And it's the purest thing about you. She clutched his shirt tighter, sobbing like a child wronged by the world. Why, Tae? Why does it hurt this much? I thought she was mine. I thought she loved me. Taehyung swallowed hard, his chest burning. He tilted her chin gently, brushing away her tears with his thumbs. Listen to me, he whispered, voice trembling but certain. She lost the right to be your mother tonight. If she can't see the worth in you, in our child, then she is nothing, nothing. He pressed his forehead to hers, their tears mingling. But I see you. I love you. I will protect you. Always. You and our baby. Girl or boy doesn't matter. Our child is ours, and I will cherish them with every breath I have. And I'll cherish you, widen even harder, because you deserve more than what they gave you. Her sobs softened, though they still shook her shoulders. She buried her face into his chest again, clutching him like he was her only anchor, and maybe he was. For the first time that night, in the safety of his arms, she let herself cry freely, not as a wife, not as a daughter-in-law, but as a little girl who had just realized that the mother she thought she'd found was only a shadow. And Taehyung held her, whispering soothing words into her hair, as if by sheer will he could shield her from every cruel word that had ever been spoken against her.